So let's start then with the Prime Minister's deal for Northern Ireland, the Windsor Framework, as it's known. It's been formally signed off.
Yes, the Foreign Secretary, James Cleverly, and the European Commission's Maros Sefcovic finally ratified the agreement after the government won the backing of MPs earlier this week.
Well, let's talk to political commentator Peter Spencer, who's here with us today, about this and plenty of other politics around as well this week. Peter, what do we make of this? I mean, it's interesting. It's all gone through. It's been praised by a lot of people. However, there were some rebels, but importantly, the DUP still aren't behind it.
No, they aren't, and that would have been the really golden prize had he managed to get that, because it would have meant that proper government would have started again in Northern Ireland. Everything would have settled down. There almost certainly would have been millions of pounds of inward investment, and Joe Biden, who's very proud of his Irish roots, would probably have looked more favourably on a new, juicy, gorgeous trade deal between the United Kingdom and America. However, the matter of the DUP, it's worth remembering that Waspish commentators say that their motto is Ulster says no, whatever the question. And it's also worth bearing in mind that they have had their pay docked for not doing their work, and also, as politicians, they quite like running things. So it is possible at some later point they might come round. In the meantime, of course, with the Windsor Framework actually up and running, it does mean that trade can operate. I mean, business will be well chuffed at what's happened.
I mean, but for people in Northern Ireland, I mean, still the DUP refusing to re-enter into power sharing. It must be so frustrating. Oh,
I mean, of course it's frustrating, yes. But as I say, Ulster says no, whatever the question. And, I mean, there is the hope there. I mean, that's certainly what Downing Street are banking on, that as time goes on and they realise that history has moved on and left them behind. And it's also, they also will have taken note of the debate last week in the Commons, in which it got through very comfortably indeed. I mean, it was widely expected that there might be a huge rebellion against this from the hardcore Eurosceptics. But a line from the legendary journalist Claude Cockburn springs to mind. Years ago, they used to have a competition in the Times each night on the sub-editor's desk for who could come up with the most boring headline. He won one night with small earthquake in Chile, not many dead. OK, move that on. Small earthquake in Westminster, not many dissenters.
Yeah, which is interesting. But from one sort of difficult piece of legislation to another, because, of course, the Prime Minister is still facing all this uproar over small boats.
Yes.
And how to deal with all of this. And it's a very difficult one, isn't it? Because it seems like politicians are split between Sunak not being hard enough or being far too hard.
Oh, precisely.
There's not a lot of centre ground here.
No, absolutely right. Well, I mean, it comes back to the point of the Conservative Party, not so much a broad church and nicely united as more of a coalition of warring tribes. And that sense of discipline and that will to govern appears to be sort of a thing of the past at present. And most certainly, yes, there are... I mean, it might come to nothing in the event, but there will be votes next week in the Commons about the new migration legislation, and it is suggested that amendments will be put which demand that judges will not have the power to potentially enable asylum seekers to remain in the country. That's on the right. On the left, of course, there are widespread concerns that this legislation actually breaches international law and makes us look pretty ghastly, really. And for that reason, the possibility of all manner of ructions is very much extant.
Even within the Tory party, isn't there? I mean, there's
totally.
immigration hardliners who want us to have a tough stance, and then those who are concerned about what it means for international law.
Sure.
Should we have a look at France? And King Charles meant to be in France. Yeah, tomorrow was meant to be going on his state visit. Macron has postponed it, came from the French. He said it was not sensible and it lacked common sense. I mean, it's not a good look for the French. It's quite embarrassing, isn't it?
Mais la vie, c'est comme ça. Qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire?
Oh, show off, Peter.
What? I mean, it has to be... I mean, you can't help but think, well, the Sunak's got his problems with his unruly party. That is nothing next to what Macron's against, is it not? And, I mean, it makes him look... I mean, there's not much he could do about it, apart from anything else. The protesters burned down the place where the king was supposed to be having his sups. And so there's really not much he could do about it, but at the same time, it does give the impression of a country which is not being run very effectively by Macron. And then, of course, there's a point about his Marie Antoinette moment where he had this ridiculously expensive watch and a sort of this... I would make the point in parenthesis that Rishi Sunak has actually contrived to earn £5 million in the last 3 years, so he's not alone in having a bob or two in his pocket. But nonetheless, there's this extraordinarily expensive watch on display. And, Marie Antoinette said, let me check. Well, it just doesn't look good.
No, it doesn't. All about the optics. Peter, for now, thank you very much indeed. We'll catch up with you a little bit later on.
Can't wait.